Hi, my name is Panav Mhatre, and I'm the host of the Spot Robotics Podcast. Welcome. Today I'm joined with my guest, Mr. Juan Tovar, discussing engineering and AI. This was a super informational episode, and he brought some amazing views. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast where you can gain an insight into technology in the modern world and gain a new perspective and advice on succeeding in these fields. If you enjoyed the podcast, follow us on wherever you get your podcast, and if you'd like to support us even more, give us a review. Thank you, and enjoy. My first question was, who are the three most influential people in your life, and how they impacted you?
Yeah, it's hard to narrow who the three most influential people are, but I can kind of break it down into maybe three different groups, right? My first group being my parents. We were immigrants and we came to the U.S. like other families do for a better life. So I saw them work hard their whole lives. They had to learn new skills that led to building careers and even building businesses. They showed me great work ethic, and they always encouraged me to be the best version of myself. So I would say if you can kind of pair them up, my parents were the first great big influence. Second, I would say my teachers and professors. I had a math teacher specifically in high school, and then a professor that I kind of grew close to in college. In high school, they helped me explore things like robotics and science clubs, kind of pushed me in that direction. In college, I had professors that gave me opportunities to do research and gave me different insights into what to do with my engineering degree, what I can do, different routes, and even different things as far as being a person. So I think it's important to keep a good balance of that. And then lastly, the third group that kind of has really influenced my life is my family. I am married and I have a daughter. They keep me grounded, and they're always a constant reminder that there's more to life than just your career. Your career is very important, right? You want to accomplish certain things, but not more than just having a duty to them. It's their important part of life, at least in my life. They help me have fun, and they keep me grounded, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess that was the general direction I was just trying to get into. I guess now for your career-wise, I know you work at Lockheed Martin. I guess could you tell us a little bit, I guess, what your day-to-day routine looks like? I guess in like a general, not like too specific, what you work on.
For sure. My days can look a little bit different depending on what's going on with certain projects, which is something I like. I don't know if I've ever had a week that's really, I would say, boring or look the same. Depending on what time of year it is, what's going on in the defense industry, space industry. But basically, I split my time between a research and development group and a contract project, and they work very, very differently. The research and development group feels more startup, and I really enjoy that. And then there's a contract which is a lot more corporate, but I do learn a lot of skills there as well. Some days I can be working on a bit of scripting or software tools I've made. Some days I'm debugging features and software in a group setting. Other days I'll be doing model-based engineering work, and that encompasses like system architecture, modeling, documentation, and even testing at different levels of a system. And then obviously you have the not so fun days. I might have a lot of meetings trying to keep up with what's going on in different levels of the organization. So it can vary a lot. I touch a little bit everything from software to more systems documentation, and for big projects you have requirements that your customer expects you to meet. So I do a little bit of everything.
I want to follow up on that. I was like, I know Lockheed Martin, like I've been to one of their campuses. They're really quick for like school stuff. I guess what is the number one thing that you love about that company? Since I know that company is really has some really cool stuff.
Man, the number one thing, I really do think that they put engineering first. I have other friends that work in different defense aerospace companies, and I'm not. Sometimes I'm not see them as satisfied. There's a whole business side to this. They're there to make money, right? That's what any business is trying to do. But Lockheed Martin, I feel, does really care about us as engineers, and they show it in their actions, the way they compensate us different ways, and the way that like health benefits and time off they give me with my family. It's very, and you hear that a lot in tech too, that they're very person driven, and I think Lockheed Martin is also very person driven, and they really value the engineering. There's big pushes for engineering to come first, along with safety. But
I couldn't agree anymore. Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah.
Yes, I know you were you gonna say something else? I guess did I cut you off a little bit?
It's all right. I honestly don't remember, but I got my point across, I think.
Okay, next time I'll just keep that in mind.
Oh, that's fine.
But yeah, so I guess a lot of people we've interviewed have been like emotional, and I know you were emotional as well. So I guess can you tell us a little bit about what you did, your experience over there, and one thing you liked about emotional.
Yeah, I think for me it was a really great experience. It was fast-paced, tech, team-driven environment, and taught me a lot. Since it was my first job out of college, I had to learn how to navigate a professional engineering team environment. But I had leaders that mentored me a lot of the time. I learned new skills, but more importantly, what I think I learned there is how to use the resources that I had available to learn new skills. I think that's very important. I also learned a lot about startups and business side of things. It takes a lot to bring a new product to a market and have it be successful, especially with something very complicated like autonomous vehicles. So, ups and downs, but I did learn a lot about different things in the business and different skill sets.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess I know, if I'm correct, this was during college, right? You had an internship, I'm assuming? Is like an Aptiv? What is this called?
Oh, I didn't have it. So Aptiv, this was so it's kind of odd. Aptiv became the part of Aptiv that I was at, which is Autonomous Mobility Group, morphed into Motional when Hyundai and Aptiv partnered up. So if you see people that work for Aptiv and then later on work for Motional, all it happened that a group of people just kind of were brought into Motional. Not much changed on my day-to-day. My boss was the same. Everything was mostly the same, except now I work for Motional instead of Aptiv. But there's a big relationship there. It was pretty much I worked for the same. When you see Aptiv and Motional, you can think of it as the same thing.
Were there any challenges that you faced when, I guess, was there even a transition, or was it just the same products and same exact things you were working on?
It was the same type of products. You had autonomous vehicles. If you've seen it, I think Aptiv had some BMWs that they showed off. And then when Motional became a thing, then you would see a lot more of the Ioniq 5s that you've seen maybe on some of their promo videos. Yeah. So it was the same type of product, same work environment, maybe up really high. C-suite VPs changed a little bit, but my immediate teams weren't really impacted by that.
I gotcha. I know you did a little bit of research during your college experience at the University of Utah, and I'm a big research guy, so I was just curious. I guess since there's I know your research available, I guess if you could talk about what you did, and
sure.
I guess what motivated you to get into that specific field of research in general, and
maybe motivation for me was it was right place, right time. I really liked robotics, and even though my undergrad was in mechanical engineering, I always leaned towards software. I really like controls and robotics. So I actually worked on a teleoperated surgery robot system for retinal eye surgery. With that's a lot, right? Teleoperated and surgery system. There's two goals. One is to increase the accuracy and longevity of a surgeon. Surgeons have to make really precise movements and cuts. So as surgeons age, their position goes away just because of natural human aging. And the other goal was to increase the range from when surgery can be done. In theory, a surgery happens when a surgeon's right over the patient, but if you bring a system that maybe could perhaps be mounted, and the surgeon can be removed from the immediate area over to a station, in theory he can be a foot apart, a mile apart, or 1,000 miles away doing the surgery from another part of the world. So those are kind of the two goals with teleoperated surgery. And the movement happen the scaling happens by mapping it. So if a surgeon moves, let's say 5 centimeters to the left or right, that movement can be mapped to 1 millimeter, 2 millimeters, whatever you want that scale to be. So it lets you become a lot more accurate, and it lets you become a lot more accurate and have a lot more room for error, I guess. But I specifically worked on the stylus that the surgeon would be using, and it was based on tools they already used, so there's less of a learning curve for the surgeon trying to adapt this new tool. The tool it's like a little, they call them micro forceps, so you squeeze them, and then at the end you have these little micro forceps that squeezed, and they would pretty much go into your eye and remove scar tissue, and then in a certain way, in hopes that it would heal, and then your vision would increase. So our research consisted of designing, manufacturing, and developing software that would mimic the feel of the tool, and provide the same input back into the system. So if they squeezed, then you wanted that signal to be received, figure out how hard they squeezed, and then transfer it to the system, the surgery system. There is a version of this called the Da Vinci surgery system, and it's used for surgery in the abdomen area. That's actually something that you can look up. But the system we're going for is something for eye surgery, so a little bit different.
I got you. That was. I guess you talk about robotics, and I want to basically ask. I know you did, if I'm correct, both your master's and your bachelor's in like a similar field to robotics, like mechanical engineering, kind of.
And, mechanical engineering was with the emphasis on robotics, and then in my master's I did a little bit of I did more machine learning controls and system signal processing.
Yes, I guess. Could you talk about what motivated you to do that? Because I know I'm not exactly sure, but I guess there obviously was some sort of robotics back then. So I guess anything that inspired you to be in that field, particularly.
I just really liked. I think I initially went into mechanical engineering, just because in my head I like things that moved, and I wanted to figure out how those things moved and make them move in the way I wanted them to. That's what a robot does. It moves, and you make it move how you want it to. Mechanical engineering ended up having a lot more different things: aerodynamics, fluid dynamics, material science, which is another very important thing, but I didn't find attractive. So when you do your undergrad, you kind of have to take a whole assortment of classes. But towards the end of my degree, or where I did it, at least at the University of Utah, and I would assume others are very similar, you get to pick and choose your electives to complete your degree. And I ended up going more robotics just because in some projects I ended up building things early classes when I took early software classes, and that's just what I ended up liking. I really like controls, robotics, and stuff like that. So I ended my degree like that, and then I started working for Aptiv at the time on self-driving cars, seeing a lot of that technology develop, helping it. And I did my master's while I was working at Motional, and I just kind of wanted to reinforce the things I was already learning and learn in more detail about how to do more like research and development. So that's why when I did my master's, I focused a lot on like machine learning, signal processing, more controls, just because that's something that I had liked towards the end of my degree. That's something I was working on, and I just liked it, so it's kind of how I picked that.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
I want to basically ask, I know you talked a little bit about the AI part, I guess. Could you talk about how, what role, you play in AI, like what you're doing with AI, I guess? Is that something you could talk about?
I can talk about general.
General,
AI,
not specific.
Yeah. AI impacts everything. If you just think about like how AI is impacting you, maybe other people. There's chatbots. There's image recognition, all these different fields, and machine learning specifically in AI. Just think of it, but now it's in the mindset of, well, how does this apply to defense and defense systems and the government? That's kind of some topics that I delve into, but that's as kind of as specific as I can get.
I gotcha. I guess what was one piece of advice you'd give to someone starting out in your career like in robotics and a little bit of AI, I guess, what would be your advice? Because I know that's a really upcoming field right now, and a bunch of stuff is expected to happen. So I guess.
Yeah, everything's moving so fast. So my advice would be don't stop learning, and learn from others that have been doing it longer, right? Even when I started at Motion, I was fresh out of college with maybe some research experience, but there had been guys there working, whether it was in cars or there's different topics for years, decades in some instances. So don't stop learning and learn from those guys. Talk to them, pick their brains a little bit, draw from different experiences and build a network, right? Reaching out to people, I think, is a great way to doing that. Things are going to get stressful. Things are going to be hard. Problems are hard to solve, but I think perseverance is key. Not giving up, because if someone gives up on solving a problem, then either that problem's never going to get solved or someone else is going to solve it. But it takes someone who doesn't give up to do that. Aside from that, I kind of mentioned it before, keep a balance between building a career and having a life outside of work, whether it's friends, hobbies, or family. I think it's important to not get dragged down by, I guess, corporate and like just that, letting that be everything, if that makes sense.
I gotcha. I guess, so I know I want to talk about like what's one personality trait or like characteristic, I think, like that you've seen with your team, I guess, like something that really helps someone basically be able to succeed in that specific field, or like in a team together in that specific industry, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I briefly mentioned it. I think perseverance is key.
Yeah.
There's going to be problems ranging from not too bad to it may seem impossible. It's kind of like autonomous driving, right? In different conditions. So keep at it, but within that, keep an open mind, be data-driven, organized, studious. But at the end of the day, it comes back to not giving up. So I think be persistent in what you're trying to do. It may not get solved right away, but if you learn techniques as how to break a giant problem down to a bunch of little problems, start tackling them, that's one way to be persistent. So.
I gotcha. This is one question. I'm not sure if this gets too specific. It's not related to Lockheed Martin, but I guess you work in the engineering and AI space. So I guess, what do you see as something that's about, I guess, like, what do you see the future of the space being, I guess, overall? Not, you could talk, like, if you wanted to, just like a specific to the space and defense, or overall, like, what is something you see as a groundbreaking thing that's about to happen, or like you want to happen, I guess? I don't know if that's...
It's hard because there's so many moving pieces. AI is already a part of our everyday lives, whether we realize it or not, from the way we consume things to activities and hobbies that we like, right? And other obvious things like social media. The next few things I see impacting the most, taking over, is maybe taking over really repetitive tasks that maybe someone thought it was too complicated to take over, like clerk work, maybe even like paralegal work. That comes with its own obstacles of accuracy, but maybe I see it taking over things like that. But that also comes with other issues, social and economic, right? So I do think I would like to see those things being discussed a lot more and figuring out solutions before we encounter those problems, because it's going to change the way we live, and we need to be able to adapt beforehand. But another big thing, I think, is quantum computing. I think that'll be a big key difference in AI, and it'll push the boundaries of what we know. Yeah,
I know. I guess do you want to talk about, I guess, I don't know if you're an expert, but I guess something you see in quantum computing. I don't know.
No, I'm not an expert at all, and I don't do anything with it. There's no research that I'm involved in, but I just have seen documentaries, some papers I've dabbled in reading, just enough to feel like it's going to be something that really changes. Whether I'm right or wrong, time will tell. But yeah, I wish I was involved in some of that research. It looks really cool.
Yeah, it does look. I guess, but it's also, I guess, relatively niche. Like, there's not that many. There's a lot of experts, but I guess, like, a lot of them
Yeah, the cool
like
things. I remember seeing IBM doing some of that work, and they're doing some cool stuff. But yeah, I don't know if I could not tell you if Lockheed Martin's involved with it or not. I have no idea.
I guess so. What's the most important lesson you've learned in your career? I guess lesson you learned, like any personal and like experience that you learned from that really stuck with you to current day.
Yeah, that's kind of tough. I would have to say something kind of like along the lines of persistent. Don't let other people define what success means to you. It's easy when you see a lot of people being successful around you in whatever way you define it, to get caught up and let take over you and get you down maybe a little bit. But I would say don't let others really define what success is for you. One of my favorite, I have a coworker, not coworker. I used to have a colleague in college, and his idea of being successful was, I'm gonna finish this degree, I'm gonna get a 9-to-5 job, that's all I'm gonna work, and I'm gonna spend the rest of my time rock climbing, hiking, and being outdoors, because that's what he liked, right? And I think that's great. That's not what I wanted for myself, but his definition of success was, I'm gonna work as much as I need to. He doesn't really care about promotions that much. He kind of invests some money and stuff to kind of subsidize maybe a little bit of his income. But he's very happy with what he does. He goes places. He'll go to South America. He'll go these crazy places just to rock climb, because that's what he likes. And that's his definition of being successful, and no one defined it for him. So I would say figure out what you want to do. Figure out where you want to be. Don't compromise yourself for others, and you define what success means for you.
I guess could you talk about, I guess, what success means for you? I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know
that's fine. Success for me is I feel like I'm successful. I mean, I was an immigrant to this country, and with the help of my parents and friends, I went to college. I have a bachelor's and master's degree, and I work, and I have enough time. I enjoy my work. I enjoy the company I work for. I do what I want, and I feel like I'm making an impact in the space that I'm in. But at the end of the day, I close down my laptop and I go hang out with my family. And I do what I want. During the winter here, I live in Utah. I like to snowboard, so I get to do a lot of that. I have enough time off to do that. I get to travel. So to me, that's successful. I've been to 8 different countries. So to me, I'm successful because I get to do what I like, and I enjoy every single day.
That's really cool. I guess like you, my parents are also immigrants, so I understand, like, their definition of success, I guess, was successful being over here, I guess, like, and I guess I don't know, I guess like I want to ask you, since I know I guess a lot of the people we have aren't really immigrants, so I guess I want to ask you in particular, I guess how did being an immigrant really impact you in the space, if anything? Like,
what do you mean in, like, the engineering space?
Just, I guess, in general, I guess, how did being an immigrant impact you in life? And I guess it doesn't have to be specific to engineering. Like, for me, for example, my parents don't really, like, I'm applying to colleges now, so my parents don't even know, like, most of the stuff, so I have to sit down and explain. Yeah.
It was hard. I didn't know how to apply to colleges at first either, and my parents, they went to college in Mexico, so they didn't know how the U.S. system worked. I didn't know how the U.S. system worked. They always pushed me in high school to get good grades, and I did get good grades, was part of clubs, so I had a lot of choices. I chose to stay in state just because it was cheaper. I didn't have, and I had a scholarship to the University of Utah, so it made it easier just to stay here. But it comes back to knowing your resources. My dad had a friend, and he had also had a daughter that had she was in her sophomore year of college, and she figured it out. So she said, "Hey, can she show me how to navigate this?" And they did. So, but as far as being an immigrant and how it impacted me, I think it's just one of those things immigrant parents kind of drill in your head, like, you got to be successful, you got to go to college, and you know, I don't know if your parents were like that, but my parents were like that. So it was kind of ingrained in my head in a way, but at the same time, I think I thrived out of it. Sometimes that might not be the case, but I did. And early, my dad now was like, for a while he was a project manager and stuff, and you know, oversaw a bunch of construction projects. But for a while he was he had like a crew, and he would work on construction sites. And he actually, one summer I wanted to make some money, so he's like, okay. So he had me working with his, and I was living in Phoenix, Arizona at the time. He had me working with his crew, and he had me wake up he's like, you got to be on site at 5 a.m. till like noon, right? That was kind of the work day. And it was one of those things that I did for a week, and I'm like, man, this is definitely not what I want to do the rest of my life. So, I mean, that was one of the moments I realized, like, okay, well, I got to really figure out how to apply myself and make sure that I do what I want to do, right? That was a big thing that I still remember now to this day. So, and now they're like, you know, my dad oversees a bunch of projects. He worked his way up to where he is. So it was really cool for me to see that, especially as someone who came to the country with very little.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. I know you talked about the importance, I guess, of networks and stuff like that. I guess I know like networks are a huge thing. I guess I want to hear your take on, I guess, any advice for networking, the importance of basically any advice you have surrounding networking.
Yeah, I think you're doing a great job. I kind of saw, like, you know, you're talking to a bunch of people much. You have to put yourself out there. And at first I would assume that easy, but then it gets easier, right? No doesn't hurt as much when you've heard it 1,000 times. But that's a good idea. And then as you go to college, try to join some clubs. I was part of the Society of Hispanic Engineers. I met a lot of people there. We traveled to different parts of the U.S. to like attend conferences, and I would attend seminars of how to build different skills, which in my opinion, it's unfortunate, but you have to know how to write a resume. If you can't get your knowledge across a piece of paper, then you might not get your foot in the door. And that's how it is. So it is a skill that you have to have. But learning how to take interviews, how to talk to people, those are skills that you're going to have to navigate. So as you grow your network and maybe join these clubs, you'll develop those skills. And I think that's a decent way to build the network. You're going to find people through work, through research, whatever you end up doing. And I would just, now it's a lot easier, right? You have LinkedIn. There's a way to keep in touch professionally. But before, I would just text people or hang out outside of work sometimes. So just reaching out to people, getting involved where you can, I think is a good way to build a network.
Mm-hmm. My last question, and this is the question I usually end off with, is I guess when you look back at your journey as a person, like basically your whole college journey and your professional journey, I guess, like overall, I guess what is something you see that you could have done different, if anything, and I guess what is the future direction looking for you? I guess what do you want to do for the next, 10 years, or how many years you decide you want to be in this space?
One thing that would change, like I said, I'm telling you, get involved with clubs. I didn't get involved till my junior year, because I don't know. I was working full time while I was in college, trying to pay as I go as well, because I didn't want a lot of debt coming out of college. But I do wish I would have joined clubs a lot sooner. So as a freshman, put yourself out there. If you see maybe a professor is like, hey, we're doing some research, or just reach out. Is something you're interested, or you like a professor, say, hey, like, if there's any future research, keep me in mind. Try to get involved as early as you can. You're already starting to do things in high school, which is way more than I did. I did robotics clubs and stuff, but so that's a good thing. Just keep doing that, and where I see myself in the next 10 years, I really like what I do day to day, and I like the projects I'm involved in. There's a research and development project that I'm on, and I'm hoping that it turns into something bigger and the project grows. I'm not sure how other operates, but when you have like a research and development group, it costs money to run that. It costs engineers time, and with the hopes that you either get like a contract or turns into something, a bigger product that someone out there buys. So it'd be cool. I like the research that I'm doing, and I would like to see it grow into a bigger project. Other than that, maybe lead a bigger team. I've gotten the chance to maybe guide a couple of people, but I like to be, lead big efforts and bigger teams, and then definitely take on mentees, mentor people. And in my personal life, kind of just I like where I'm at. I recently bought a home, so I'm kind of doing some things to it to make it my own. And that's kind of what's going on in my personal life. And keep snowboarding during the winter and going outdoors during the summer.